Okay, hi all. My name is Devin, I'm the microbiologist. My name is Devin Dombrowski. I have been doing wildlife rehabilitation for about 10 years or so. And I work here at Lindsay, but I also independently do a bunch of web development and database application development. So that gives me a very unique perspective on two really cool areas to work that I think. So basically, long story short, I've been told I have up to 30 minutes max to show you something we've been working on for 3 or 4 years now. So we're going to do this sort of fast. Basically, what we've done is developed an application to help wildlife rehabilitators better manage their records. And the quick 30-second genesis of how this came to be, we spent at least a year, just researching how all the different wildlife rehabilitators throughout, mostly California, but truthfully the country, are managing their records and what are their best practices and what's the information that they want to keep and how do they keep it organized? Is it on paper or is it digital? And we tried to aggregate all those best parts into one thing. And there were some very, very key goals that were that we wanted to get out of this, but we also was important just to rehabbers in general. One, that it's got to be extraordinarily user-friendly. It can't in any way be difficult, not only just to be user-friendly, but because rehabbers either don't have a lot of time to spend messing with their records and don't want to waste time trying to find where to put the information, or, and I'll say this delicately, not all rehabbers are the most computer savvy. So it's got to be in your face obvious. Another thing that was very, very important was to make sure that all of the data that was in here was extremely private and secure and wasn't going to leak out. So that's part of this. So the application is entirely web-based, which means that you can be anywhere in the world and log on. The URL, and you're all welcome to go and look at it, but the URL is wrmd.org, and this is the homepage for it. And on the public side, if you were to go to the top right corner and click on support, there's a ton of support information in there. There's a bunch of videos, and actually this will be up on there as well. But there are a lot of tutorials just to explain how to do certain more common features. And there's just a ton of support information. So if you want to learn more, please come here and click around. But since we're short on time, let's just jump right into it. So on the top right corner is a link that says login. And this is the login screen. You put in your email address and your password, and you log in. And I'll say real quickly that all this data here is completely fake and bogus, so it may not make any sense, but it works good enough for this demo. So the way it works is your organization creates an account, and within that organization you can have as many users as you want. You can have one user and everybody use that same login information, or you can have 20 if you wanted. Once you're logged in, you're brought to the dashboard, which is just a basic generic page to give you some just quick information about what's going on with your records for the current year. The way that it's organized is the links across the top, where it says Dashboard, Rescuer, Initial Care, Continued Care. Those links are basically the places you would go to put information into your records. So if we clicked on Rescuer, so this is case number 1, and this is the rescuer's contact information for that case. And it's a pretty generic page. It just gives you their contact information, and if you scroll down a little bit, which I'm sorry people in the back won't be able to see too well, it'll show you what animals that rescuer has brought in the past. If you go up, please. Now if we went to Initial Care, we're still on case number 1. Initial Care is basically everything that happened within the first 24 hours. So like, where did it come from? Things to help further identify this animal more than just its case number, like if you gave it a band or certain keywords. Initial Exam is the initial exam. And then on the bottom are disposition-related things. So, what happened to that animal, or where is it, and what's its potential future. The disposition fields are the dispositions that U.S. Fish and Wildlife recognizes. So they're not made-up funny dispositions. With the exception of 2 of them. There's euthanized and died, but we also have a euthanized in 24 hours and died in 24 hours. And that's really, really nice to actually keep track of because, as we know as rehabbers, unfortunately, many of the animals don't survive the first 24 hours. But for those that do, it's nice to be able to track how well they are doing. And I'll sidetrack and say on the year-end report, the dieds and both euthanized are combined into one, so it's represented as died or euthanized. Now, for those animals that do survive the first 24 hours and go on further in their care, their information is put onto the continued care screen. So the first box was identity, and the bottom one says disposition. It's the same information that was brought over from the initial care screen, so you don't have to update anything there. But the real, meat on this page, or the meat of the record, is the medical record. And basically what a medical record is the log of your daily activities with that animal. If you weighed it and you can put the weight in, and you did some sort of treatment, you did an exam, or whatever you've done with that animal for that day. So you would write it in, and it creates a log of the activities you've done with that animal. So as I said, one of the goals was to make this as slim down, as easy as possible, so that truthfully any rehabber could use this. Even if you continue to use your whatever system you're using now, even if it's paper records, you can still come in here periodically and just create the digital records, put in their final disposition and their admit weight, or the most basic information. And if you only use worms for that, not only are your year-end reports going to be literally a click away, but you're going to have historical data actually computerized for years and years and years, because this data is in stone. So 10 years from now, you can go back and look at your records and see a history of how many house benches you've gotten in and what have been their average weights or whatever. And you obviously can't get that very easily off of paper records.
Can you print this?
Thank you for asking that question. So can you print this? And one thing I want to say is, personally, I'd love it if everybody is to use this and follow this system. But I'm not going to force anybody to do that, especially if whatever you're using works for you now. But one of the features, well, basically, like I said, out of the box, slim and simple. But there are features that you can turn on if you want more fancy abilities. So we went to that and we click on settings. On the left, there's a bunch of settings, but we'll jump ahead to extensions, which are the fancy features. So if you clicked on list all the extensions, click it, you did. So for example, if you wanted to keep a specific place to keep lab data or prescriptions, you can turn on those features. It's okay to keep prescriptions and lab stuff in the medical record treatment field. There's nothing wrong with that, really, except that makes that data less searchable if you wanted it to be really uniquely searchable later on. So to answer your question, can you do paper records? If you can go down to...
I did it already.
Okay, so...
I activated.
Thank you. So there's one there, paper forms, and Rachel will turn it on. So now if you go all the way up, and just go to initial care, I guess. So now what that did is it basically put these links there. And if you clicked on intake form, and now on the bottom left, click on the little thing that just opens. And we'll wait a second. So this is just a papered version of the intake information. And it's already, if you could go up, please. It's already printed, the case number and the species and the basic contact location found information. So if you wanted, you could print this out and then do all your stuff on paper, and then at some point, ideally, come back and transcribe it back onto.
Or forget the paper, do it on there, print it out, and attach it to your record. Then you have to do it twice.
Yeah.
Where's the, why am I not?
Go to on Chrome. Oh. So the short answer is yes. I'm not trying to do this so that things are difficult for you again. Like, this is supposed to be easy for everybody and to get the benefits of having a digital database. So there are a ton of other little features and things that can be turned on. Yes, ma'am?
Even with your initial form without adding on the extras, is there a way to, for example, ask it to collect on the intake, it's almost like an Excel where you can take a cell and ask specifically for that information to come up. So that if I just sort of wonder in a year if we're getting a lot of animals from a certain area.
I know exactly what you're saying.
You can pull address or city or something like that out of the intake form.
I think she's doing a search. So do you want to find out like where all the animals came from, Mississippi or wherever it is?
Oh,
so it's like a
right.
search function.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So searching. So I could spend an hour or two just talking about how searching, but basically there's 4 or 5 different ways to search out records, and some of them are very, very quick and precise, and others give you more flexibility. What did you just do?
I quick search Hawk.
Okay, yeah. So on the top left, there's a little quick search, and you can type whatever you want in there, like a case number or city bound or whatever. And it will kind of blindly search for that term across all the fields and all the records. But if you wanted something a little bit more specific, you could click. So all the links on the left are basically quick links to different things. And one of them is full search. If we go there, on this screen we have all of the fields in the database. So I think to answer your question, tell me if I'm wrong, what you would do is then
City.
intake, yeah, city, sound, Walnut Creek, or whichever city you're in, and it would return all the results,
Okay.
all the animals in this case. But if you wanted birds, then you would say birds, Walnut Creek. There you go.
And can you export all of your data?
Yes, you can export individual records or all of your data. And where's Susan? And now you can identify which field you want to export. So okay, there you go. So this is not like you follow Devin's rules and that's the end of it. One of the things that's really important to me is that this is basically community driven. So on the top right, there's a little link that says send feedback. You type in whatever you want and it comes to me and then I respond. So I either say, good idea, let's do that, or maybe later. Susan said she wants to be able to identify which fields she wants to export out, because if you export everything, then it can be a lot more than what you want. So basically, long story short, I think I did it last night or the night before. And if there you go.
Wow.
There's monsters in the program. So I'm totally open to suggestions and ideas. If there's a lot of people requesting the same kind of feature, then obviously it should be something that's part of the database. What else can I show you?
This is case summary.
Okay, all right. So one of the features that's been commonly requested is a way to see the entire record on one screen, so that you can just quickly summarize or reference everything that's going on with that animal. And Rachel will turn that on and just adds the link summary to the top. And basically, all of the data is there, and you can just read through it instead of having to go from one page or one tab to the next. There's lots and lots of reports. Obviously, the most exciting or important ones are the year-end reports. This is all totally fake data, so it looks ridiculous. But if Rachel clicks on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Forum, yada yada, for the year-end report, federal year-end report, it produces it. And I created this with the help of Jennifer. No, Jennifer. Yes,
Yes.
the California Fish and Wildlife woman.
She's federal.
That's what I said, didn't I?
Say
Federal.
California.
Sorry. So this has got her stamp of approval on it. It has all the sections that she requires, or they require rather. And since we're talking about Fed and state, Nicole Carrion is very excited by this database, and I still need to work out the details with her, but she wants everybody, I think she wants everybody in California to adopt into this in just some way or another, whether you're a full-on, very active user, or if you're just using it as you go. I don't know exactly what it is that she wants or how she wants people to do that, but I am figuring it out with her, and I'm sure she'll tell you all about it later. 5 more minutes or so.
Well, any other questions?
I'm sure there's many other questions. Yes?
Say, for example, an outbreak of a certain disease, could you actually map it? I'll back up one step. So one of the really cool potentials of this database is not only just for your organization, but for the
the aggregate of all the data is to try to help have an early prediction for epidemics or something interesting going on. Maybe it's not a disease outbreak, but there just happens to be a lot of varied thrushes coming through California. So at this very moment, that does not exist into this, but the data is there, so it can do. Right now, one of the biggest development phases of this is to make sure that people can easily get the data into there. So there are some analytics. So I can't think of any good ones off the top of my head, but you can graph the weights of animals, and there are other analytics on here. The reason I haven't spent a lot of time on this area is because it's more important to put data in than to see how the data works. But the short answer is yes, we will be able to do that. Other questions? Yes?
I look at Calvary Wildlife Center and think over that Dr. Tom about modifying the numbers. I assume that that's still not available.
Right, so when you create your records, it assigns it the next numeric case number, and it always starts at 1 at the beginning of the year. So, and if you click on last, please. In this goofy little demo, there's been 30 records this year. And when it creates a record, that record cannot be deleted. Basically, the primary reason is if you deleted that number, the database would get all confused about what should be the next case number, and it gets kind of confused. So you cannot change case numbers. If you needed to reuse a record because you created a case for some animal, but that animal actually never existed or whatever, you can go back to that record and just write a new case over the existing one. I don't know if that answers your questions, but the short answer is no. So there's a ton of other features. I could spend forever. Okay, so click on share records. What?
We don't need this go anymore.
Okay, well, the point is I'm happy to share this with you. If you'd like to talk to me more, you can, or there is a trial account you can log into and play around and do whatever you want. It's completely free, in case anybody was wondering that, although I gladly accept donations because it's not free to me. Thank you.